Babylon. Yeah, we sat down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying. Oh,
Shalom, shalom, family, and welcome to another Tanakh review. My name is Zurishaddai, one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH, CHOKMAH, located in the Red Hood section of Brooklyn, New York, giving all honor, glory, and praise to the Most High, King of the universe, for life, food, clothing, and shelter, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, thanking the Creator of heaven and earth for all things and everything, for allowing us to be here once again, to be in His presence and to give glory into His high and holy name. How's everyone doing out there? I hope that everyone is well. I hope that everyone is blessed. And early Shabbat Shalom to everyone out there, praying that the Most High God will continue to bless each and every one of you. So today we will be going over the portion of Devarim, which is the beginning of the book of Devarim or Deuteronomy, the first portion in that actual book. And for that, I'll be passing it on to one of my teachers and one of my mentors, Nasik Zurishaddai ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
All right, great. Baruch Hashem. First of all, I'd like to give praise to the Supreme Intelligence of the universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, and due respects to the platform on D.C.B. platform, spiritual leader, Chief Prince Ariel ben Saska, to the host, Chief Uzael ben Lewi, also to the Princess, Chief, Kohanim, Rabbinate, Maureen, brothers and sisters, I greet you all, and the tongue of my forefathers, Shalom Aleichem, and the early Shabbat Shalom, and also to visit the channel too, as well. I'll be dealing with Devarim, which is a very interesting book. Deuteronomy, as it's mostly called in most scriptures, that we have around, and it has, but it takes the term Deuteronomy comes from the Greek, pretty much, Latin, which means second, like a second book, a dual, like a dualism. And it's because of a lot of the laws that we learned previously are reiterated within this book of, this particular book, the fifth book of the Chumash, what most people would generically say Torah, right? Which I explained in the past that when we say Torah just means instructions. And so the instructions for us as living amongst, as God would want us to live, is contained within the first 5 books. So a lot of times you might hear some people rarely, you hear them say the Chumash, which means from the book 5. And the Greek, they say Pentateuch, which means 5 as well. Also, that another name that basically the rabbis were referred to as Mishneh Torah, which also means a second instruction. So that's another word for it. But normally, traditionally, when we deal with the actual Sidra and plus the book itself, they take the unique word from it on the beginning of the particular portion, what y'all refer to as chapters. Those that's not familiar with the terminology we use, and so here it is that it's referred to as Devarim, which means words or matters to discuss. Hence, when we talk about Exodus and people say the 10 commandments, well, it's more accurately the 10 matters. It's actually the 10 matters that's being elucidated within Exodus, the 20th chapter. but everybody referred to as 10 Commandments. And also that you could tell the difference between a traditional, I say Hebraic formulation of the 10 Commandments, because we start off with I am, Anoki, where they, most of the people that might be from a Christian background say, thou shalt not, and so that's the difference you'll notice right out the gate when you see a tablet on the wall and they talk about the 10 Commandments, and it will start with thou shalt not, but it's actually 10 matters being discussed. And that's what, excuse me, more commonly what we refer to it as such. Now, what's interesting, that we're going through 3 weeks of admonishment, and the book of Devarim always occur before Tisha B'Av, which is the 9th of the 5th month. Some people refer to it as Manakamav because they like to think of it as comfort. And I'll explain that just as we go going through this here, is that usually when a month come in, it's supposed to be like another new start, a new beginning, and it should be a joyous type thing because coming in on the Rosh Chodesh. So it's supposed to be something more celebratory. And we went to the 4th month, open up, somewhat celebratory, but it ends on a sour note. And we come into the month of Menachem, the 5th month, and it's a Rosh Chodesh, but you're still going through a thing of admonishment. So hence the term Menachem. We say, well, we might come in the month, with a low, esteem, but we ain't gonna finish the month on a low ebb. So, so now when we get to the 9th of that month, which is a memorial of the destruction of both temples on the same day, hundreds of years apart, well, I would say 100 years apart. Basically, both temples within basically, give or take about 70 something years apart. That both temples was destroyed, because we know Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the first one at 586 BCE, and we know the second one, though we don't find a biblical reference to it, but historical reference, is 70 CE of the Common Era. So, and we know the first one lasted for 410 years. The second one lasted for 420 years. Yet we had a Mishkan, which we have how long it lasted within the Book of Kings and then Chronicles. It lasted for 480 years. So, and it's interesting that the Mishkan, which is the most delicate part of the fabric, like a jigsaw puzzle, outlasts those things that was made, of stone. So that's another topic for another discussion. But so now, since Devarim is comes, it's like I said, if Tisha B'Av comes on a Shabbat, then they don't observe the fast of Tisha B'Av until after the Shabbat. Then it's pushed off on the 10th. And in the books, it mostly talk about this destruction. And when we look in Jeremiah, talk about the 10th day. But according to most historians, that started on the 9th and continue into the 10th, part of the 10th, before it was completely destroyed. Now, I just want to just bring out some things about that particular day before I go into this particular book, Devarim. And though it already passed when I'm doing this here particular talk on Devarim, but I'm always behind, pretty much on the events most of the times. But I like to just bring out a little bit about that particular date. And what's interesting is that, fast days in the book that's listed in the book of Zechariah, Zechariah, some people might refer to. And these fasts was ordained by man. It wasn't ordained by the Creator. Now, they consider the fast the 4th month and the 5th month. Matter of fact, I might as well read that for you right quick in the book of Zechariah, so that you go. But you need to read the 7th chapter of Zechariah and then go into the 8th chapter. But I'm going to go straight to, just to save time, to the 8th chapter and around the 18th verse of the 8th chapter. But those that want to go and learn more about it, that's may not be familiar with it, then it'd be nice to go into the 7th chapter, because within the 7th chapter of Zechariah, you find is exactly, pretty much, give or take, how long they actually been doing the fast. And it gives you, and chronology is very important when you're dealing with scriptures and reading prophecy. And you got to say, okay, you got to put, you can't put a square peg in a round hole. So you got to, and so knowing the chronological order of certain things is very important. But in the 7th chapter, it lets you know that, hey, they didn't do this, ever since all Israel's around. And you say, we're doing it for 70 years. And then you got to ask the question, who said we should set it off? Who got together and said, we're going to start now? And what's interesting, when the question is asked, in there, and the Creator pretty much make a rebuttal and said, before he gives a definitive answer in the 8th chapter, that you fast for you, but you never fast for me. And so now, and I just want to highlight a couple things in that 8th chapter, starting from the 18th verse of Zechariah. And it said, and the word of the Lord of hosts came unto me, saying, and that's the prophet Zechariah, saying this is what God told him. Thus said the Lord of hosts, the fast of the 4th month, and the fast of the 5th month, and the fast of the 7th month, and the fast of the 10th shall be to the house of Judah joy and gladness and cheerful seasons. Therefore love ye peace and truth. I'm going to read all the way to the end. Thus said the Lord of hosts, thus said the Lord of hosts, it shall yet come to pass that there shall come people and the inhabitants of many cities, and the inhabitants of one city shall go to another, saying, let us go speedily to entreat the Lord favor of the to entreat the favor of the Lord, and to seek the Lord of hosts. I will also go also. In the 22nd verse, yeah, many peoples and many mighty nations shall come to seek the Lord of hosts in Jerusalem, and to entreat the favor of the Lord. 23rd verse, thus said the Lord of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass that 10 men shall take hold out of all the languages of the nations, shall even take hold of the skirt of him that is a Yehudi. They used the word term Yehudi there. And it says, saying, we will go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. Now, the interesting thing is 10 men, normally it's supposed to be, rabbinically, they say 10, actual Israelites consist of a proper minyan or a congregation, no less than 10. Hence, when you want to pull the Torah scroll out, 10. When you want to say certain Kadishes, 10. The call to prayer, the Baruch Adonai prayer, and they look for a minyan, 10. So for the call to prayer, they look for that. So and when I, and they based it on basically when Abraham sent this unnamed servant, which rabbinics give him a name, to get a wife for Isaac, and it was 10 people, 10 people with him. So that's basically what it is there. But now I want to just share a little bit of light on that before I go into Devarim. That when we look at that particular area there, the 7th month, it's not talking about Yom Kippur. There's another fast in the 7th month that technically, been calculated that it happened actually on Rosh Chodesh at the 7th month. We that, observe the Shalom Regalim and all the Moedim, appointed times of the Creator, we know that Rosh Chodesh of the 7th month is Yom Teruah. Other people commonly call it Rosh Hashanah today. Supposed to be a celebratory thing. So hence the celebratory time, we don't fast on that. And yet they consider this the Tisha B'Av, the saddest day of the year. And you say, okay, and that's the only fast that they actually do, basically, traditionally 25 hours, just like Yom Kippur, basically 25 hours, because they want to make sure they put the full time in, so they don't want to cut it short. Now, the two differences, besides one being man-made and Yom Kippur, what we do on Yom Kippur. Now, Yom Kippur, fasting Yom Kippur is actually a rabbinic viewpoint, because the word fast is not mentioned there in Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. But, that's, what's understood, that's what we do. We actually fast on Yom Kippur. So, hence, since the word fast is not mentioned in Yom Kippur, but yet we traditionally do it, a fast, those that's able, mind you, that one of the things that we got to look at is say, well, how is this fast of Tisha more of a sad time, as the saddest day on the calendar year for us? And the difference is not only that they fast and decide to fast for that, but it's because of their neglect and and the destruction that hit. So they fasting because of their neglect, that they caused something tragically that happened to the house of God and to the and not only to the people of God, but to the land that which is God's land. Excuse me. So when we deal with Yom Kippur, it's not a day of mourning. We actually mourn on Tisha B'Av. On Yom Kippur, what we mourn, is that I didn't live up to my standard, but the consequences is basically more so within me, not that it affected something outside of me directly. In general sense, in a general sense, where when Tisha B'Av, it actually caused the land to be desolate and the temple to be destroyed, God's name to be desecrated. So that's a big difference. On Yom Kippur, we look for that to say, I got a chance to get back in God's grace. I got a chance to be forgiven if I, really come strong with a devout repentance. So that's why Yom Kippur is not considered a sad day. It's a welcoming day in that sense. That now that God allowed me to come back into His grace. On Tisha B'Av, it's like we're not fasting because we're gonna come back into God's grace. We're fasting actually because how bad we did things and the consequences that didn't just stop with us and went beyond us. So those are some of the things to consider. The differences on Tisha B'Av. That's why normally from the 4th month, the 17th of the 4th month, all the way until after Tisha B'Av, they don't have a lot of celebratory things. Some people may not eat meat. There's a lot of different customs out there. I'm not going to go into that right now, but so many people is not familiar with those particular days that, read scriptures a lot. I mean, and I'm talking about amongst pretty much a lot of Israelite circles as well. And this is just more of a patriotic thing in that sense. All right, so much for that. Any questions, you can always leave it in the chat. But I prefer you to talk with your various teachers and leaders in the various congregations you're at. To try to get a little bit more insight within it. And then, as I said earlier, go back from the 7th chapter of Zechariah into the 8th chapter, which I just read. And what's interesting is that other people were finally, and it didn't happen after they returned from Babylon, that people coming up. We know in the latter days they're talking about, all nations got to come up during the time of Sukkot. So it's a lot surrounding this particular occasion, and it's a lot surrounding Zechariah and them, and that maybe most people might not speak on, because the return from Babylon, we had a time frame that time was served. Not that we deserved to come out, but time was served. Same thing with Egypt. When we went down to Egypt, time was served. Not necessarily that we deserve to come out. And this dispensation that we disperse around the world from the four corners that Jeremiah talk about, bringing from the north, the south, the east, and the west, and bring my children from afar, that haven't happened yet. And that's because it's going to be a global return, where the other ones are never a global return. We come from one spot over here, we come from one spot over there. That's it. So now I'll go into the book of Devarim. I didn't want to, take you too far, but I think it was so important since it passed us now, and and we go now through, being comforted for 7 weeks of comfort, until we, get to the next pretty much holy day. So we get 7 haftorahs of comfort coming along with this. So I'm not going to deal with the haftorahs in this particular with Devarim, but I want to highlight some things about Devarim. Now, one of the things about Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy, is open up, and I might as well just read a few verses first. It says, in the 1st chapter, these are the words which Moses spoke unto all Israel beyond the Jordan, in the wilderness of the Arabah, over against Suf, between Param and Tophel and Laban, and Hazeroth and D.C.B. It is 11 days' journey from Horeb unto Kadesh Barnea, by the way of Mount Seir. All right. And then so now I just like to let you know that these places here, this name, we really don't know exactly where they at and what they are. All right. So now when we deal with the book of Deuteronomy, it's going to explain. Well, I might as well just continue. So I have less explanation to give. And it says in the 3rd verse, and it came to pass in the 40th year, in the 11th month, on the 1st day of the month, that Moses spoke unto the children of Israel according to all that the Lord had given him in commandments unto them. Now we got the exact date when Moses started to speak. And we also now know that this is the 11th month of the 40th year. So this actually started his speech on Rosh Chodesh, and that's of the 11th month. And it goes and say, after he had smitten Sihon, king of the Amorites, who dwelt in Heshbon, and Og, the king of Bashan, who dwelt in Ashtaroth and Israel, beyond the Jordan in the land of Moab, took Moses upon him to expound this law, saying. All right. Now, this in the book of Deuteronomy, we know Moses died in the 40th year. We get an idea, and just backtracking, how long they mourned for Moses and when Joshua actually crossed over the Jordan and get there. So I'm not going to go over that. I've been there many times over it, but I'm just saying, just to pinpoint things. So basically, he has a 5-week-long sermon, 11 sidrotes, 11 portions, 3 discourses, that's unique. So this is the longest sermon ever given by a man, to a people. It's right here in the book of Deuteronomy. So when we think about the book of Deuteronomy and what's unique about the book of Deuteronomy, it's not what, and the Lord spoke to Moses saying, speak unto the children of Israel. It's always, and the Lord spoke to Moses, then Moses started to talk. So for a man that, always had, claimed that I can't speak, well, he's able to talk now. He elevated to a certain thing where God spoke through him in the past from, concerning the Exodus all the way through to when he spoke to the people. God spoke through him. So it was never his words, so to speak. It's like the guy Bill Arm said, I only can speak what the Lord had me to speak. So there was never his words. There was always the Creator using him as a vessel and as a transporter to transmit those words exactly what God wanted him to say. Now we're going to have, Moses not only speaking and reiterating some laws, we're going to have some new laws instituted within it, but also the thing is now I need you to understand certain things. Now, one of the things we look at these spots, we can always make talk about, soup, what I mean? When we think about the opening parts of the different spots, it's always in reference to what actually happened, some of the spots that we were, soup. When we crossed at the young soup, we was panicking, we was panicking. So Moses, when they say, well, how do you rebuke an individual? How do you rebuke a brother or a sister? And when you rebuke them, what makes a rebuke good? And what makes it where a person can even listen and accept the rebuke? So the first thing is that these spots are reminders of places where we messed up at, and one of the things that is a reminder where we messed up at is that when we got to the Yam Su, we see Pharaoh's army. Now we're panicking, excuse me, and they're fussing about what happened, in the Yam Su. So if you're in droppings, that's the range. We're coming down pretty hard down here. So that's one of the areas there. So in all these places here, but I'm going to focus on the last spot there, D.C.B. You know what I mean? Now we know the word Zahab means gold. So a place of gold. That's the last one that but it's no place called D.C.B. But it's much gold they had coming out of Egypt. One of the prophets, when they talk about you took the gold that the Lord gave you and made an idol. Well, the gold, that's referring back to when Moses talking about when he's going to rebuke him. So when he rebuking the individual, he hints at the actual actions that took place there and not the individual directly. So a lot of times when we rebuke an individual, we must sometimes look at the actual sin. I'm rebuking the sin. I'm not rebuking you as a person. I'm rebuking the sin, the act that's being done or committed, because you are not that sin. You are greater than that sin. So as a person, I still have love for you. I still have a care for you. And you are acting like something that you're not. So that's when the rebuke is, and the person will accept that a lot better when you realize that it's not them that you're coming after, but you're coming after the act and saying that act is not really them. So when he mentioned about Zahab, it's the goal. So it teaches you how to make, when you open up this chapter and you think about those places there, and then, an 11-day journey we did in 3 days. So that means that the Creator on the onset wanted us to hurry up and get into the land and go ahead and begin the conquest of the land. We derailed the actions. So that's what we learned from this particular portion here. Let me just move on just a little bit. And in the 6th verse, and the Lord our God spoke unto us in Horeb, saying, you dwelt long enough in this mountain, turn you and take your journey and go to the hill country of the Amorites, and unto all the places nigh thereunto, in the Arba, in the hill country, and the lowland, and the south, and by the seashore, the land of the Canaanites, and Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates. Behold, I have set the land before you. Go and possess the land which the Lord swore unto your fathers, unto Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give unto them and their seed after them. Now, those boundaries is the future boundaries, but we never ever really reached those boundaries, for occupation. But the boundaries that he told Abraham, that was passed on to Isaac and passed down to Jacob, those were not the boundaries. So when we look at the tribe of Gad, Reuben, wanting to stay on the other side of Jordan, that also was within the boundaries that was promised in the future as we expand, but not basically what it was meant to be, in the very beginning. So, and that's another story, we could go ahead and elaborate on a lot more. Why would they want to say our inheritance, fell into us, we don't want to go any further. We won't take anything on the other side. But, this is some of the boundaries. So, and there's a lot of discussion on that, on that portion. And the half tribe of Manasseh was assigned there. And one of the things about, if I'm only half, I need to give them the other side. So that means that keeps it like a joining on the land, because all Reuben is there, all Gad is there, but Manasseh was set forth that, hey, we're interested in the land, we just happen to be over here as well, but we actually know that we only have whole. We only become whole when we get together with brothers on the other side, and that will be a lesson also for the other two tribes. And like when they asked for the land, like I mentioned before, it was basically Gad that asked first, and Reuben was the controlling banner of that particular South camp. But in the South camp, you had a lot of casualties, as I spoke before. You had Kohathites, casualties. You had the Reubenite, casualties. And the sin of Baal Peor, a casualty. The only one that we don't read directly having a casualty in that the southern camp was Gad. Hence, Gad was the one that spoke up in front of Reuben. All right. But as we go further, we're going to learn some interesting things that's a little different in this particular portion. And I neglected to say this particular portion goes all the way to the 3rd chapter, the 22nd verse. That's where it ends at. So, hence that's why I want to talk about Tisha B'Av, and then I'll speed through this here. And it says, and I spoke to you at that time, saying, I am not able to bear you myself alone. The Lord your God hath multiplied you, and behold, you are this day as the stars of heaven for multitude. The Lord God of your fathers make you 1,000 times so many more as ye are, and bless you, as he had promised you. How can I myself alone bear your cumbersome and your burden and your strife? Get you from each of your tribes wise men and understanding and full of knowledge, and I will make them heads over you. All right, now, when we get into this here, all right, sometimes when we look at this, an event in our life, and that's one of the things, I'd like for you to discuss more, pay attention. Sometimes when the event happening and it's happening real time, you don't really analyze what's happening. But afterwards, when you get removed from the event more and you start to recollect the event, you start thinking deeper, analyzing deeper, and you say, oh, this is really how it happened. So now when you tell the event that you actually lived through that happened a while ago in real time, sometimes the story change because you will see it differently, down the road, maybe years later, maybe a week later, but, we're talking now, most of the events he's talking, is happening, 40 years ago, this particular event. This event happened 40 years ago. So now when you look at it 40 years ago, the story changed, because when we know the story, it's not the way we read it in the book of Exodus Shemot, with Yithro. We didn't read that like that. We didn't read it also when it talked about the elders, that they had the spirit dropped on them. We read it a little different back then. So why is it now when he's talking, that's how we know that this is Moses talking, why the event kind of changed a little bit, because from what we had read earlier. And sometimes when people, it used to be a song, like the size of a tail the fisherman told that broke his wheel is growing. You know what I mean? Because the longer you tell the story sometime, if it don't be written down, you say, okay, I wasn't there, but he changed it. He highlighted some more details, but why that detail wasn't there before? And for those in the court of law, that's what you got to be careful about, because the further away from the event, are you sure? Are you sure this happened? What was you doing at such and such date at such and such time? So we get a little bit of glimpse of this here in the book of, Devarim, Deuteronomy. All right. So now we know when it came down to the judges, it was not his idea, but we're going to go on, and about the judges. When it came down, when he couldn't bear the people, and he wanted God to kill him because of his own righteousness, all right, we find out that God took his spirit and put it on 70 elders. Now, here the event is in a different order, because before he had the breakdown, he judging the people from morning to noon, while the people stood by, and his father-in-law, Jethro, gave him that advice and said, hey, look, what you're doing is not good for you or the people. And you're going to destroy yourself, and you're going to destroy this people. And Jethro gave him, his father-in-law gave him the advice how to choose certain men and qualifications. The qualifications was only for the judges. When it came to the elders, the Creator selected the elders for Moses' spirit to drop on them. All right, so that was Moses' selection. That was the Creator selection when it came to the elders, where they had to bear the burden of the people with Moses. And that came afterwards, so when we hear, we got like a reversal of the events that's going on here. And then, and we're talking about the judges, we're talking about captain. And when Jethro gave him the qualities for it, they didn't have all these qualities when he accepted them. So, and it said, and the cause that is too hard for you, you should bring to me, and I will hear it, and I will command you at that time all the things which ye shall do. All right, that's Jethro's advice, that he gave. All right, but when he talk about what he looked for and what he could not, he could not find, was right here. He couldn't find the people to fit all the bills, because we read what the qualification that Jethro mentioned, what he chose then, and what we read right here. So, like I say, we get different viewpoints and stories. So is it more accurate? Did he look at it more deeper? Did he discuss it a lot more intense in his head when he's speaking on his own now? Because this is his understanding and how he recalled things. And this is his last sermon. This is Moses' personal sermon throughout the whole book of Deuteronomy. All right. So let me just go a little bit further. It says in the 19th verse, and we journeyed from Horeb and went through all that great and dreadful wilderness which ye saw by the way to the hill country of the Amorites, as the Lord our God commanded us. And we came to Kadesh Barnea. And I said unto you, ye are come into the hill country of the Amorites, which the Lord our God had given unto us. Behold, the Lord thy God has set the land before thee. Go up, take possession, as the Lord, the God of thy fathers, has spoken unto thee. Fear not, neither be dismayed. And ye came near unto me, every one of you, and said, let us send men before us, that they may search the land for us, and bring us back word of the way which we must go up, and the cities unto which ye shall come. Now, in Shalat Lekah, it would make it seem like this is straight up coming from God, and that we don't read where Moses was asked, by the people in Shalat Lekah. All we read is that sin for yourself. You ask God, and God sin for yourself. Like that's God's idea, the sin. And battle strategy. Moses never told him to make a battle plan of attack. Neither did we read, that, a battle plan of attack should be improvised by the spies to come back, and they tell them, oh, look, anything we come up with for our strategy, it ain't gonna work. Anything we come up with. So that means they already analyzed battle plans when they come back. Said, no, this ain't happening. We ain't qualified to do that. So the story, like I said, when we read Deuteronomy, not saying, and I want to be very clear, that I'm not saying that it has no value. I just want people to realize that this is Moses. The other 4 books, that spoke the Lord to Moses, saying, speak. And this is Moses speaking himself and causing the people to understand from his perspective. All right. So, and that's what a teacher does. And one of the things, and I want to share this point, that when you give a definition of a word, you don't use the word you give a definition to. Right? When you're describing a thing, it describes things that it's not and related to it. So these are some of the things we got, you pick up. So now let's look at this area here. And it goes on to say, all right, 23rd verse, I'm going here. And the thing pleased me well, and I took 12 of you, one man of every tribe. Did he take him? Or God called them out and named who should go? This is some of the things we got to look at. And they turned and went up into the mountains and came unto the valley of Eshcol and spied it out. And they took of the fruit of the land in their hands and brought it down unto us and brought us back word and said, good is the land which the Lord our God giveth us. Yet we will not go up, but rebelled against the commandment of the Lord your God. And you murmured in your tents and said, because the Lord hated us, he had brought us forth out of the land of Egypt to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites and to destroy us. Whither we are going up, our brethren have made our hearts to melt, saying, the people is greater and taller than we, and the cities are great and fortified to heavens. And moreover, we have seen the sons of Anakim there. Then I said unto you, dread not, neither be afraid of them. The Lord your God, who goes before you, he shall fight for you, according to all that he did in Egypt before your eyes. All right, so we learned a lot of stuff from this particular area here, and that's one of the things that we got to basic understand this particular chapter. Now I'm gonna just try to fast forward just a little bit here in this particular area here, and it goes on to say. After they cry, they boo-hoo, and everything, that in the 34th verse, it said, and the Lord heard the voice of your words and was wroth and swore, saying, surely there shall not one of these men, even this evil generation, see the good land, which I swore to give unto your fathers, save Caleb the son of Jephunneh, he shall see it, and to him will I give the land that he had trodden upon, and to his children, because he had wholly followed the Lord. All right, that's a serious thunder that's going on down here. All right, so when we think about the serious thunder here, that's what's going on out here. So now, when we talk about Caleb was promised a land. So when you notice that when he picked the lot, he the only one knew exactly where he was going to be at. Only one knew ahead of time before the lottery was drawn. And he was able to pick the lot for the tribe of Yehudah. All right, so we find other discrepancies here in this particular portion, and I want to bring out a couple more things here. That in the 18th verse, all right, Joshua the son of Nun, who standeth before thee, he shall go in thither to encourage thou him, for he shall cause Israel to inherit it. So then Joshua's supposed to take over there, and everything like that. And then it goes on, it goes back a little bit in the 40th verse. But as for you, turn you and take your journey into the wilderness by the way of the Yam Suf, the Red Sea. Then ye answered and said unto me, we have sinned against the Lord, and we will go up and fight according to all that the Lord our God commanded. Once he said they couldn't fight, now they want to fight, and they got beat down pretty bad at that time. All right. Then when we go further, it goes through the history pretty fast here, and it talks about different nations. We talk about East when you go by the land of Esau, all right, the seer, their possessions. Say in the 6th verse of the 2nd chapter, you shall purchase food of them that ye may eat, and you shall also buy water of them for money that you may drink. For the Lord thy God hath blessed thee in all the works of thy hand. He had known thy walkings through this great wilderness these 40 years. So there's certain people we weren't supposed to mess with. Esau, he was given certain inheritance. The Moabites were given certain inheritance, so but they still feared us. And talk about Esau and them feared us, and also the Ammonites. And it mentions basically just children of Lot, and also Isaac's other son Esau, the children of Esau. All right. So now they had inheritance, and the places they conquered, these were giant guys. When we at very end, we conquered actually those guys, they were no small guys. When we talk about how tall it was, the Moabites fought giants, the Ammonites fought giants, Esau fought giants and was accomplished. So it's like saying they was able to do that, you know what I mean? And God had gave them that property. They didn't cry, they didn't shy from it. So why is it now? You know what I mean? So it's like an admonishment saying they was able to do this, but I'm getting ready to go. So now Joshua's going to take over. And then one of the other things I like to bring out is that when they talk about Sihon, God, in this thing, he talking about that God wanted them to go ahead and fight against Sihon in this particular portion. But then he said he sent out, you know what I mean, messengers to him. So now that's a question to deal with. I'm just going to go over and highlight some things here. That's a question to go with, that if he sent out messengers against Sihon, when God just said, go ahead and fight against them and war against them, then is Moses disobeying, or he tried to elevate and say, look, I'm gonna give him a chance to submit and go on out the way? That's something to discuss, because it's wondering, if God say fight with him, then what you doing sending a messenger of peace? All right, so these are some of the things that go on. And then they go and the last thing I want to speak on in reference to that is that it describes Og's bedstand, and also two things too, that he's called the last of the Rephaim, Og, but Lot's children had killed a lot of the Rephaim, the people, but the Ammonites called him Samsumzim. Og was the last of the Rephaim, and then he was a tall guy, and they talk about his bed. All right, so now it's always a controversy about the bed. Was that actual bed? You know what I mean? Or some people might say it was a crib when he was a little dude, like a baby crib. Not necessarily his bed. Or it could have been like old school guys who would say, look, I'm coming over to your crib, man, and hang out. And then we mean your house or your porch, where you rest your head. But since the dimensions are given here, then we know, since the dimensions are given here in reference to that, then it's actually more so, something that he laid on in that sense. And since he laid on it, was it actually his bed, or was actually, because who keeps a bed as a trophy? I mean, who would be interested in a bed as a trophy? A crib, people keep baby shoes, but when the baby get big enough, they get rid of the crib. So, what was they keeping that for, and who kept it, and in that sense, and who pulled it out? Because they destroyed everybody in that city, man, woman, and children. So I'm gonna stop right here, so I won't have to belabor a lot of stuff. But I like for everybody to go over it, because you're gonna find out how many cities it was, and you talk about all cities fortified. I mean, you actually had solid iron walls, gates. You were already a giant, and you got gates up and walls up high. All right, so that means that it was, and plus they had a bunch of unwalled towns. So it was really a developed city that they had conquered. All right, so but they didn't take none of the people. They just took the valuables, whatever was valuable that they could use. So with that, they finish off about what the Manasseh and Reuben and Gad would be allotted, and then they go into talking about what they're going to do as far as conquest of the land. All right, so I would touch on some of the stuff going into Echanan, which is the next Sidra, which is I consider one of the sad portions of the book of Deuteronomy, Devarim. So with that, I hope you guys have out of what I said in a little brief moment. Any mistakes been my own, and I greet you all. Shalom Aleichem and Shabbat Shalom.